The day began with a soft, golden glow painting the edges of the canyon. Little Luna, a fawn with spots like scattered stardust, followed her mother across the meadow. Each blade of grass wore a tiny jewel of dew, winking in the morning light. High above, Elder Hawk circled on the morning thermals, his keen eyes a silent guardian, watching over all the creatures below. But Luna wasn't looking up. She was listening. A strange echo, deep and almost musical, was rolling through the canyon, a sound she had never heard before. It seemed to come from the very stones themselves. "What's that sound, Mama?" she whispered, her large ears twitching with curiosity. Her mother nuzzled her gently, her voice as soft as the morning mist. "That's the song of the canyon, little one. It remembers every voice that has ever called out to it, every laugh, every cry, every howl. Someday," she added with a knowing smile, "it will remember yours too." Luna pondered this, her small heart filled with wonder. She looked at the vast, ancient walls of rock, imagining all the stories they held, and wondered what her own story would be. The echo faded, but the memory of its strange, beautiful song stayed with her, a promise waiting to be fulfilled. Later that afternoon, the sun warmed Luna's back as she chased a flutter of monarch butterflies near the river. Their orange wings were like tiny, dancing flames against the green foliage. Lost in the joyful chase, she didn't see the slippery patch of moss near the water's edge. Her hooves went out from under her, and with a startled bleat, she tumbled head over heels into a dense thicket of ferns and bushes. Shaken, she lifted her head. Twigs tangled in her ears, and then she froze. Staring back at her, with eyes the color of amber, was a wolf pup, nearly her own size. For a heartbeat, the ancient fear that separates their kinds held them both captive. They jumped back from each other, a gasp from Luna and a low growl from the pup. But then, something shifted. The wolf pup tilted his head, his ears flopping to one side in a way that was surprisingly friendly. "Hi," he said softly, his voice a little shaky. "I'm Ridge. Don't worry, I'm not like the hunters." Luna's legs still trembled, but the terror began to subside. You're a wolf," she stammered, the words taught to her in cautionary tailies. "Yeah," he said, and then a small grin tugged at his mouth. "But mostly, I'm hungry. Got any berries?" Cautiously, Luna nudged a cluster of wild raspberries toward him with her nose. He ate them gratefully. By the time the sun began to dip below the canyon rim, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, they were no longer a deer and a wolf. They were just Luna and Ridge, chasing fireflies together as dusk settled. Two new friends who had forgotten the rules they were supposed to follow. That night, the gentle sounds of the canyon were shattered. A storm, born in the high peaks, descended with a furious roar. Thunder cracked like the sky was breaking apart, and lightning lit the world in stark, terrifying flashes. Rain lashed down in sheets, turning the gentle slopes into slick, muddy slides. Luna, separated from her mother in the chaos, bleated in panic, but the wind snatched her calls away. She tried to find her way back, but every direction looked the same in the disorienting dark. Soaked and shivering, she finally took refuge under the roots of a fallen pine tree, her small body trembling with cold and fear. Just as she was starting to lose hope, a familiar shape appeared through the downpour. It was Ridge. He nudged her gently with his wet nose. "Come on!" he barked, his voice steady against the storm's fury. "My den's nearby. It's dry." He led her through the deluge to a small, sheltered hollow under a rock ledge. Inside, it was warm and quiet, a safe haven from the raging tempest. He gathered a pile of dry leaves with his snout and pushed them over her, creating a makeshift blanket. As she snuggled into the warmth, the shivering finally stopped. She looked at him, her eyes wide in the gloom. "Why are you helping me?" she asked quietly. Ridge just shrugged, licking a raindrop from his paw. "Because you didn't run when you saw me." Outside, the storm raged on, and high above, perched on a dripping branch, Elder Hawk watched the impossible sight. A predator and prey, a wolf and a deer, asleep side by side, safe in the heart of the storm. When dawn finally broke, it brought not the gentle light of a new day, but a hazy, acrid smoke that stung the eyes and throat. A wildfire, sparked by a lightning strike from the storm, was clawing its way through the forest, its hungry flames devouring everything in their path and racing toward the meadow. Miles away, in a watchtower, Ranger May saw the ominous plume of smoke rising against the morning sky. She grabbed her radio, her voice urgent and clear. "All units, we have a fire near East Canyon. Moving fast, we're initiating a wildlife rescue operation." Back in the den, Luna and Ridge woke to the terrifying crackle of burning wood and the smell of danger. Ridge sprang to his feet, his ears flat against his head. "Follow me," he barked, his voice sharp with instinct. They scrambled out into a world of falling ash and glowing embers. They ran, dodging flames that leaped from tree to tree and rocks that tumbled down the slopes. The heat was intense, the smoke thick. Suddenly, Luna's tired legs gave way, and she stumbled, sliding precariously close to a cliff edge. Before she could fall, Ridge lunged forward, grabbing the scruff of her neck gently but firmly in his teeth. He pulled her back with all his might, just as the ground she'd been standing on crumbled and fell away into the smoky abyss below. Just then, a loud, piercing cry cut through the roar of the fire. Elderhawk swooped low overhead, circling purposefully. "This way." His call seemed to say to the river. Trusting their winged guide, they followed his flight path until they reached the cool, rushing water. Without a second thought, they plunged in, letting the current carry them away from the fire and toward safety. Hours later, the worst of the fire had passed, leaving behind a scarred, blackened landscape. Ranger May, her face smudged with soot, was making her way along the riverbank, checking for survivors. That's when she saw them, a fawn and a wolf pup, lying exhausted but alive on a small sandbar. She approached slowly, a gentle smile touching her lips as she saw them huddled together. She helped Luna to her feet and carefully tended to a burn on Ridge's paw, wrapping it gently. "Well, I'll be," she whispered to herself, stroking Luna's head. "Looks like nature has its own way of making peace." That ebony as the sun set, casting a soft, healing light over the wounded canyon, Luna stood atop a large, soot-stained rock. Taking a deep breath, she called out a soft, clear cry that was no longer trembling with fear, but filled with a new strength. Beside her, Ridge lifted his head and answered with a howl, not of loneliness, but of companionship. Their voices, one a bleat and one a howl, intertwined, rising and falling in harmony. The sound rolled through the valley, carried on the wind, and the canyon listened. It took their song and merged it with all the others, adding it to its timeless echo. Permanent reminder that true friendship knows no boundaries, and that in a world often divided by fear, kindness will always find its own beautiful lasting echo. Thank you so much for watching this story unfold with us. If you believe in the power of friendship, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that warm the heart. Until next time, stay kind.